trivia. And right now we've got a ticket to ride with Beatles historian and political writer Martin Lewis, who can tell us, among other things, that it was 40 years ago today Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. Isn't that right?
Pretty much so. And of course, 40 years ago today, the Beatles were also giving the world a good message about love, because it was 40 years ago that they recorded or performed that song, All You Need Is Love, and it was a historic occasion. They actually performed it on the world's first ever satellite hookup. 400 million people around the world watching simultaneously. If you like, it was the beginning of the YouTube era.
Well, you gave me the perfect segue. Let's look back at that day. Martin, this was just not only a revolution technology-wise, but also for their career.
It really was, because the Beatles, in their early days, the Beatles were, I guess, the equivalent of a boy band. Not only were young kids like myself, male kids, enjoying them, but for some reason, strange reason, young ladies seemed to find them very attractive as well. So they were enjoying them as entertainers. But about halfway through their performing career, about 1966-67, they decided there was more than just entertainment, and they wanted to expand the boundaries of music. And they started creating things such as Sgt. Pepper and other music that didn't just please us to dance to, but also gave us something to think about, and has really been a groundbreaking exercise in music. That's what happened. And
it all goes back to 1957, that church concert where Paul McCartney and John Lennon met, right?
They met for the first time on a summer's day, almost exactly 50 years ago. John Lennon was playing there with his schoolboy friends, and Paul McCartney saw him and went over, introduced himself, had a brief conversation, and they became musical blood brothers. And it all started there 50 years ago.
Now, Yoko Ono, she doesn't really like to talk. I'm going to be very interested to see what Larry asks and what she says.
Well, you know what? Sometimes people say, oh gosh, don't they fight, you know, Paul and Yoko and so on. You know what? The Beatles, though they created magical, godlike music, they are human beings just like you and I. And we all have little family squabbles amongst ourselves. So the Beatles are no different than that. So sometimes there are differences between them. But what unites them is far greater than any small little differences.
Do you think the band broke up before they should have?
No, in some ways they left at their very top. We never had the embarrassment of them going out there and doing disco records like the Stones or Rod Stewart. And, you know, one of the things, I go to these Beatle fan conventions and I host them. Funny enough, exactly where Larry King and all the Beatle folks are, this weekend they're going to have thousands of Beatle fans going to Vegas to celebrate the Beatles. And the amazing thing about it is they say, oh, it must be all aging baby boomers like you, Martin. Half of them are 25 and under. And it can't be nostalgia if you weren't even born then. It's because the Beatles seem to engage with the noblest part of the human spirit, the part that yearns to make itself and the world a better place. And that's not nostalgia, that's just the quality of the music and the beliefs that they're trying to get over in their music.
Well, I got to tell you, another big Beatles fan is Susan Lisovich, our business guru, Martin. Susan, any big question for Martin on one of your favorite bands?
I would be interested in hearing what Yoko Ono has to say, and just to see those three separate parties converging on the same scene. I mean, I would take the whole hour, Kira, to be honest with you.
There you go, Martin. Martin Lewis, thanks for being with us.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Susan, we got the